involved in this event. We really believe that it's pretty unprecedented in the Michigan area for sure. And in my travels, I've never heard of anything quite like this happening. I'd like to introduce Stephen Dueweke, the author, which everyone probably knows. Michael Deck will be accompanying, and Matthew Smith. It's a very special night. Stephen Dueweke's been with us, and he's been an important part of Rabbles from the beginning, helping us develop, I think, a pretty important poetry scene that we have going here, and he's also a good friend. So with no further ado, here they are.
This reading tonight is for Dean Tate.
Who made you, Jim Brandecker? His ghost would want to know at tomorrow's catechism. Who made you run away? 14-year-old Jim Brandecker brushed the hair out of his eyes. Hair the yellow of corn silk, almost white, that Ma left long in a nifty curve over his collar, and in the bangs that troubled his eyes. Columbine eyes, the blue of the moon on lucky evenings. A blue so intense, his stare left the mute impression of the smell of rain on pine. Jim looked up from his nothing book and risked a glance at Ma and Dad. Ma had given up daylight and dreaming to keep both eyes on every move Jim made. Dad crumpled and uncrumpled the plans for his big development, folding and unfolding his arguments with the dreams her son had spoiled. Only the TV playing the evening news just as normal, but with no sound. At the ground zero of their living room, there was no sound. I guess I'm going to bed. Shall I tuck you in? Dad grumbled, let the boy go. Ma flustered, leave your sneakers down here, Jimmers. Jim took his feet out of his big red shoes. Ma presented her cheek. Good night, Jimmers. Jim kissed Ma, and tonight he offered to shake hands with Dad. Dad fussed, surprised. Good night. Jim should hold their hands. Jim should tell Ma and Dad he loved them and press their warm, cool hands. He stood in the doorway for a hot minute, the high house behind him like the breath of his ghost on the itch of his neck. Ma looked at him queerly in the flickering colors of the evening news. Good night, Jimmers. Yep, good night. His homebody ghost followed Jim up to his bedroom. Ma wouldn't let him use the back stairs. He undressed in the cold and black. He left his underpants on so no raven could steal them, and he got between the sheets without committing his body to warming his bed. The night was alive and alive with ghost whispers. Jim heard the cuckoo clock crow downstairs. He heard Ma and Dad climb up to bed. The stairs creaked extra loud in the black and cold. Jim held his breath. He tried to make his heart beat less and be still. If Ma crept in to gather his clothes, he would pretend to be sleeping. He would run away in his absolutes then, with completely nothing. Shannon would buy him a new favorite shirt. He yawned and shivered, too cold and nervous to be scared he might really fall asleep. Jim waited until he heard the click, familiar now. He had almost gotten used to Ma locking him in. That Dean told Ma how to make Jim change. Jim had to knock on the door in the morning and call sing-song, Ma, I'm ready to come out. Jim lay still until he couldn't hear the night moves of Ma and Dad. He slipped out of bed, soft as the cold and black creeping up his legs. He pulled on his blue jeans and his yellow socks and put on his rugby shirt. He pressed against the bedroom door to listen. Maybe the ghost of Farfar walked the old Brandecker house, and he would awaken Dad, and Dad would fetch that musket from the attic and blow down Jim's bedroom door to show Ma her runaway son. Jim bubbled. He boiled inside his favorite clothes. How could he sweat in this cold black? He heard Ma. He was sure he heard Ma. He heard Ma roll over in bed. She would discover her jimmers. She would walk right through his bedroom door the way mothers could walk through the bedroom doors of their sons. And in a glance, she would recognize a runaway. Jim needed to pee. He couldn't use his bathroom if Ma heard his flush, or even if she heard his spurtle, she would leap to his side, aflame with a fresh conviction that he made a noise to disguise a second escape. Maybe he should pee in the gutter once he climbed out the window. He'd sure like to pee on the old Brandecker house. Pee off, Dad, with your old house. But his piddle would rattle in the drain pipe, and Ma would hire a searchlight to spot him on the roof. He could pee on the family plot once he got in Pumpkin Hook Cemetery. Jim backed away from his bedroom door and tripped himself and fell backwards across his bed. He let himself bounce to make his bed quit squeaking. He wished he had that flashlight he left in the little conservatory. He needed to see. He rolled over to the other side of his bed and switched on the light in the stomach of his clown nightlight. The cold and black became cold and blue. The clown stared at Jim with the face of a kid who would not grow up. Jim yanked the clown over by the cord, and the lamp hit the floor, and the bulb shattered and sparked, and the cold and black reclaimed the room. Jim heard Ma for sure. He heard Ma ask Dad, "What was that?" Dad mumbled, Jim inched off his bed. He better go. Just go. He tiptoed to the window. He pressed his nose to the cold black glass. Go. He pushed the window high as he could. His shadow touched ground with long fingertips. The cold licked his neck. The black nuzzled his chin. The new moon put a finger to his lips, bold and indivisible. The cold was too black for the high house to make Jim dizzy. He sat backwards on the windowsill and looked back into his bedroom. He could not tell the cold black inside from the desperate black out of doors.